Welcome. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So this one...
This is when you told us you were a drag queen.
Drag act Cookie MonStar tells his unique story.
Now in the past, the accolade of Force's Sweetheart has been held by the likes of Dame Vera Lynn and Captain Jenkins.
But drag act Cookie MonStar is making history by being the first man to be given that title, apparently.
When I was a little boy, I had a dream, but I never dreamt it would take me to where I am today. My name is Richard Rhodes, Cookie MonStar, and Sheila Simmonds, and this is my story.
Richard, as a little boy, was a delightful little boy. Happy, always happy. We used to call him Smiler.
So growing up, all I wanted to do was be a pop star. And there was no internet, no computers, so the only way that you could become a pop star was to have a record deal. And growing up in a village, all I had was smash hits and Top of the Pops. So I spent hours in this room just writing all these songs. And I just went off into my imaginary world and I created a pop star called Ricky. This was the first song I ever wrote on my keyboard. Quite funky. Looking up from a past direction, making moves of my own. Looking up on a new horizon, singing lost on the phone. Looking up in the past direction, making moves of my own. Looking up on a new horizon, singing lost on the phone. Everything was on RAK Records because I was a huge Kim Wilde fan and she was signed with RAK and that was my dream, to be on the same label as her. This is one of my favourite ones as well, Avanti. I just used to find inspiration all over the place. I mean, Avanti was a clothing label from C&A, Clock House for girls, Avanti for boys. And I just turned it into a song. So everywhere, I mean, these were out of like the Radio Times, these were from magazines. I just found inspiration from everywhere. So I've got posters that I used to design. Ricky, new album coming out, new single out July 17th, taken from the forthcoming LP, Moving Closer. New single, Target for Love, available now on 7-inch and 12-inch, and also includes a remix of You and Me Both. Fabulous. So I was in a band with my friend James, and we did a concert. We were called Future, and we did a concert at Warmington Stadium, which was right downstairs in the living room. It was Friday the 17th of July 1987, and it was £2.50. to get in.
Well, it was so painful. It was really, really painful. But we sat through it.
And this is the actual shirt that I wore for that concert. So this was my first costume, really.
I grew up in a small village with my parents who were both teachers and my older brother Tim. The countryside was a great place to grow up. We were encouraged to play every day and use our imagination, creating things from nothing.
It's funny looking back because there seems to be nothing here at all. But I guess when you're a little kid, it is everything, because I guess there's so much to play with here. I'm glad I grew up somewhere like this. I think it really taught me how to use my imagination. We never really watched a lot of television when we were young. We just played all the time. So we just played in these fields. We played in everybody's gardens. We had dens. We went on bike rides. So yeah, this is my playground. This ignited my imagination. It's strange really looking at it now because it's just a ploughed field. I didn't want to be at school at all. I just didn't. By the 5th year, that was it. I was finished. So I'm just reading through. I found all my school reports. This is one of my favourites actually. I found this. This is English and this kind of basically sums me up. This is from Miss Corby. I loved her. She was a great teacher. It says, Richard's work is of such a variable quality that it's difficult to assess or predict future results. I just think that sums everything up. I hope to see him try a little harder in PE and contribute a little more to the year group activities. I hated PE. I couldn't bear PE. I was always the last to get picked. No one ever wanted me on their team. Mind you, I'm not surprised because whenever the football came towards me, I just used to move out the way. I didn't want to get a dirty PE kit. Geography. Richard has been causing a lot of disruption in lessons by his very immature behaviour and his openly defiant attitude. I hope this will improve for the sake of his peers over the last few months. A surprisingly good result after Richard had produced some atrocious classwork. Lacks confidence in his own ability. Richard has no interest in trying. Richard needs to put more effort into the activities. I must try to stick at it, apparently. Richard seems to be going through a crisis of confidence. Not very motivated, uninterested, appears to enjoy trampolining, typing. Richard has made exceptionally good progress in typing. Richard's greatest weakness has always been his written work. Did not really enter into the spirit of the course and was absent for much of it. And then I left. There was a very strong turning point at school. I had everything going against me, and I had this big nose, I had this voice that was ridiculous, and nobody really wanted to hang out with me. And then one day we went on a school trip, and someone took a photograph of me, and it was me in a sky blue sweatshirt, and I was going through this forest, and I must have tripped over a twig at some point, and as I tripped, obviously I went like that, and snap, the photograph got it, and that photograph circulated around the school, and from that day the boys didn't want anything to do with me.
After the circulation of the picture, I found my name scrawled on walls or on desktops saying I was a poofter. I felt very alone, so I started to rebel at school and at home.
I don't think he knows how to conform. I mean, when he eventually did go to school, it was, I was told he won't wear an apron for art. Well, no, he won't. And he's not going to. whatever you say, if he makes up his mind he's not going to do it, he's not going to do it. He won't get changed with all the other children. Well, no, he doesn't want to. Why should he? But this is part of his character, that there's a part there that's a very determined part of his character, fortunately. I don't know where he gets it from.
I knew I was different. Deep down, I knew they were right. I fancied boys, but there was no way I could express it. I left school after the careers advice officer told me to stop being so stupid for expressing my desire to be a pop star and suggested I join the army. I ended up going to catering college, hating every day of it, and by the time I left, my dream had been replaced with the idea that I should have a sensible career, get married and have children. As far as I was concerned, my creative life was over. I didn't know it then, but I was already suffering from depression. I'd left home, and at a party one night, I attempted suicide. A cry for help? Attention seeking? Maybe a bit of both.
I used to be really nasty to my mum and dad, more so my mum, because I just wasn't understood. I just didn't feel like I fitted in at all. I was just this strange person, again, with this, big nose, with this funny voice. Everyone else around me, my friends seemed to be leading a normal life. They were all what I consider good looking. They had boyfriends or girlfriends. Just everything. I think everyone knew that I was gay, but I was trying to go out with girls just to, just nothing. It was like being a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. It was just like everything. And I think part of me wanted to do it for the attention. And I felt really bad about it as well, because of course my grandfather, my mum's dad, committed suicide. And that's why I didn't tell her for years, because I didn't want her to find out. The last thing I kind of really wanted was her to lose two people through suicide.
Soon after that, I decided I needed a change, so I moved to Bristol to live with my brother. It was then that I met a girl called Titch. We hit it off from day one, and we became best friends. Titch and I were both sensitive souls, both wanted to be performers, and we were both hiding a secret.
Across London on a quiet afternoon, I find myself immersed in this extraordinary.
About a year later, Titch came out to me when we were travelling around the world, a trip that opened my eyes and my mind, but not enough to have the courage to come out myself. On our return, we both hit a major depression. Travelling can do that to you. I had no idea what I was doing. I ended up moving back home for a while to try and sort things out, but I craved being back in a city, so I moved back to Bristol. I started to go out to the gay bars with Titch, which finally gave me the courage to express myself and come out. She was the first person I told.
I remember when I came out and I decided I said to myself, if I tell the world I'm gay, that's it. There's no going back. I just couldn't say the 3 words, just those 3 words. It was like, just to get those I am. I could do the I am, and you just couldn't say the last word.
Well, I didn't know he was gay until he told me. I told both John and I. We were staying with Tim and his wife at the time. We'd gone up for the weekend. Richard was going to be there as well. When we got there, he wasn't. And Tim said, there's something that Richard wants to tell you, but unfortunately he's cleared off. And Tim had been out trying to look for him, couldn't find him. Then eventually he came back to the house, and we all went up to one of the bedrooms in the house. And I said, okay then, what is it? And he said, I'm gay. And I thought, oh, thank goodness for that. I thought he had some terrible disease and we were going to lose him. So I didn't really, yes I did, I suppose, have an idea of what it was, that it was boys liking boys, men liking men, but as to anything else, I'd never given it a thought.
Well, I think with, at that time...
Thought I'd thump you again.
I know you prepare yourself to be disowned.
Oh, for goodness sake.
No, but you do.
Yeah.
That's, you
go out of all proportion, don't you?
Yeah, so you already, before I told you, you already have planned...
It was never dark on my door again.
...how to live your life without you. But you do.
One day, Titch asked me to go with her to see Madonna's Girly show at Wembley. That show changed my life. I was right at the front, and I remember one point where Madonna looked at me right in the eye, reigniting my creative spark. The next day, I applied to every drama school in London. I don't know how I got in, but I did. And not just one, but 2 schools. My dream was now almost a reality, until I found out the cost. The school very kindly agreed to keep my place open for a year, but I couldn't wait that long. Luckily, the answer came in the form of my friend Claire, who had just returned to Bristol for a holiday from New York. Her auntie was a film director, and they were starting work on a new film. She suggested that I went back with her to see what would happen. So I did. I arrived in New York with $800, a suitcase and a dream, and moved in with Claire and 3 others into a 1-bedroom apartment in East Village. I walked the streets daily looking for work. My money was fast running out. Luckily, Claire introduced me to her friend Simo, who got me a job as a busboy in Life Cafe. I got paid $15 a shift, plus a cut of the tips. 3 weeks later, I moved into an apartment just off Christopher Street with Claire and her friend Kerry. A long railroad apartment. I slept on 3 cushions, which I gathered together with a sheet to hold them together, fitted sheet so they wouldn't move. That was my bed. Claire and Kerry had a bed each in the bedroom. The kitchen had a big bathtub in it, which you put the lid down and it made the work surface. Then you lifted it up, filled the bath up. And in the corridor was the toilet. One day at work, I met a casting director and landed my first performance role as a background dancer for Mariah Carey's fantasy video. After this, I was sure I would be spotted, so decided to take things seriously and enrolled at HB Studios, a place where actors on a budget would go to study their craft. At that time, Christopher Street was the beating heart of the gay scene, and I felt like a kid in a forbidden candy store. I started going out to the bars and clubs, finally finding places I could be myself and be accepted. I attended my very first Pride and would spend hours down on the piers in the summer watching the Queens voguing and carrying on. I'd always liked to drink at a party and smoked a bit of weed in the past, but there was something about the energy of New York that made me want to explore my wild side. And in those days, booze, drugs and sex were in abundance, and I took full advantage of them all. The first club I went to was the Sound Factory, where the DJ Junior Vasquez was spinning. I'd never been anywhere quite like it, and from that night on, I wanted more. The Limelight, Tunnel and Palladium were places I would always go, losing myself in the music and the hedonism. Do you remember that coming into the Palladium and they had those stairs? And you would...
Best staircase ever.
The stairs were lit from underneath and go up. You were on ketamine trying to get down those stairs.
It would take you a whole 3 songs.
Soon after that, I found myself homeless again. A reoccurring theme of a struggling artist in New York. And I moved in with my friends Simo and Irene, where I had a bed in the kitchen under the stairs next to the oven. So I'd never really considered doing drag. I remember first performers that I saw were Candice Kane and Gerlina. I worked at Life Cafe, and next door was a bar called the Crowbar. So most nights after we'd finished work, we would go into the Crowbar. And there was a night called Swirl, which was Gerlina's night. And sometimes she would have Candice with her. And I just remember going to see these 2 girls, and they were just fierce. They would like do runway up and down the bar, lip sync into these songs. They just had this amazing energy about them and charisma. And you just wanted to watch them all night. You couldn't take your eyes off them. Both amazing dancers. And I just watched them and I thought, God,
I didn't know. I just saw it and thought it was really exciting, and I really wanted to talk to them. And I was too frightened to go and talk to them.
I'd done a couple of shows with a band called the Mall Girls. Their lead singer Jenny worked with me at Life. We used to get so bored sometimes that we invented these two characters, Sabrina and Cookie, two white trash lesbians from New Jersey. The first performance I did with them was just a bit of background dancing. The next show I did, my look became more draggy, and from then I was asked to do a performance piece called Insane, where I went from myself into drag.
Yeah, and something just sparked inside of me. I'd obviously always wanted to perform, and people kept saying to me, "Oh, you should do drag, you'd look good in drag." And I thought, oh, okay. And at the time, one of my friends, PJ, was best friends with RuPaul. And I think I'd just finished reading RuPaul's book. And he took me to see him, I think it was at Webster Hall or somewhere like that. And I remember Ru had this angel dress that he wore. And I remember watching him put the wings up on this angel dress. And I was like, wow. And yeah, just all those things together just kind of started stirring this thing in me. And I thought, let's give it a go. At the time, there was a competition in Barracuda in Chelsea called Star Search, hosted by Mona Foote. So I decided that I would do Star Search. And I found my New York diary here. And I've got the night before, Wednesday, July the 31st. And it says, well, it's Star Search tomorrow, Cookie's debut. I'm very scared, not just because I'm performing, but because this is the beginning of something starting to happen. Okay, so off I went to Star Search, and I figured out, okay, this is my first performance, and I should really do something different. So I'd written my own song, kind of a New York club track called Miss Thing, and I'd done this track and found someone that had a studio and gone and recorded it, and then I think I mimed it actually. I mimed to my own track. So this was my song that I took to Star Search and performed as.
Hi, my name is Cookie, and before I start work in this room, we need to get one thing straight. Dollar bills are not acceptable, 'cause I'm Cookie, a queen bitch, 'cause I'm Cookie, a miss thing to you, thank you, 'cause I'm Cookie, a queen bitch, 'cause I'm Cookie, a miss thing to you, thank you.
The performance went really well, and Mona said she'd loved it, but it wasn't good enough for me to take the top spot. But I wasn't undeterred. I'd been well and truly bitten by this performance art called drag, and I was determined to claw my way to the top.
Now, just before this had happened as well, I'd quit my job at the restaurant and run next door to the Crowbar because my friend was now managing it. And I remember knocking on the shutters, and I said to him, Eddie, you've got to let me in. I've just quit my job at the cafe. I'm going to do drag full time. Can you give me a night? And he said, I can give you a night, but I can't pay you. But you can work behind the bar the rest of the time. So I thought, fabulous, I'll do that. And my first night was going to be called Crumpet.
Keep young and beautiful. It's your duty to be beautiful. Keep young and beautiful. If you want to be loved, you don't call the doctor. There's nothing wrong with me.
Things moved pretty quick for me. I started doing guest spots all over the city, and people began to recognise me when I was out. The feeling was addictive. I'd never had this attention as Richard. People called me beautiful. They wanted to be with me, and I was loving it. Corvette and Gemini were two relatively new queens on the scene, and we'd all started working around the same time, and we very quickly became sisters.
I was doing my best to be a performer in an off-Broadway musical, and I had a role of a lifetime, and I was the sexy ingenue. And she had a really short skirt, and she had no lines, Except for she only had the lines that she was very scrappy to like interject herself into the dialogue, and the director would always call her out and say, "You're gonna be fired in 2 weeks if you keep doing this."
Was the name of the character
Boom Boom
Fontaine?
Boom Boom Fontaine, honey. So the director was over me, I was over the production. I was like, this isn't for me, and every week they were like, you're gonna get fired, and every week I was like, I'm quitting anyways, and whatever. So anyways, the show closed for a little hiatus and then reopened.
And around about that time there was another ingenue that appeared on the scene.
I had no idea who she was.
In the guise of Cookie MonStar. And there was a role going, and
it was up for grabs.
for grabs, and she gracefully sashayed into that role and snatched it from under.
Well, I had already quit, so mind you.
We went to every single party going. Back in those days, that's what you had to do to get work. You had to be seen by promoters, get your picture in all the magazines, or get yourself seen on public access channels. People didn't have computers. There was no internet. Social media consisted of carrying around a bunch of your flyers, taping them to lampposts, dropping them off in bars, and always carrying your cassette with you in case you were asked to perform. Myself, Corvette and Gemini were running riot all over the city, appearing in as many places as we could, and most of the times we would be getting paid in drink tickets and lines of cocaine. We weren't making the big money, but we were having so much fun it didn't really matter. Added to all this was yet another stint of homelessness. I've lost count of the places where we crashed or the endless nights spent in 24-hour diners. Something had to change, and I needed to find a way to really start making good money. Luckily, things took a turn for the better, and I got myself a job at the drag restaurant Lucky Cheng's, where I made great money, had my own column in Vice magazine called Cookie Dish, and for the first time since moving to the city, I managed to get my own room. I was still at the Crowbar, and two very good friends of mine lived a couple of doors down from the Crowbar, Corey and Walter. And one night I approached him, we were just talking. He said, I think we should do like a TV show. And back then there was this thing called MNN, Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And anyone could have a TV show. The requirements were that you had to be a resident of Manhattan. And every season you had to deliver, I think it was 8 brand new episodes out of 13, and you could do 5 reruns. And at the time I was writing sketches and bits and bobs, and I thought, great, this will be a fantastic idea. Let's do a TV comedy sketch show. And we literally just met, and I wrote some sketches and we started filming it, and we did a TV show called CTV, Cookie Television.
It's time for CTV.
There were 10 different characters that I played on that show. Some of my favourite ones were Pam and Joan, 2 elderly ladies who were constantly searching for a game of bingo in the Big Apple, Pussy L'Orange, a frustrated northern housewife, and Barbara Versace, a home shopping presenter.
Hello everyone, and welcome to
Cheap, reasonable, affordable prices.
That's right, and welcome to Crap. My name's Barbara, and it's great to be back with you for our housewares section.
All the parts were played by myself, Walter and Irene, and occasionally I get Gemini and Corvette in to help me out. We used to do a sketch called Mall Girls, Samantha, Kelly and Cindy. Think Charlie's Angels, but in a shopping mall. I even played my mother Joyce MonStar, who was having an affair with Cookie's boyfriend Marlon.
Oh, and Marlon, judging by the smell and the looks of them, they're nice and fluffy. Yes, indeed. Lots of fluffy going-ons there, and they seem to have risen rather well.
Yes, things are rising rather well, Mrs. MonStar.
It was so much fun. None of us really knew what we were doing. I'd come up with an idea and then we'd just film it. We would start the filming of Pam and Joan doing a bump of ketamine, then roll camera. The cue line to stop filming would always be, "Cup of tea, Joan!"
Wait a minute, what's the number now? Let's have a cup of tea and do the bingo. Cup of tea, Johnny.
We named ourselves affectionately as the CTV family as we spent most of our time together. Back in those days, we had no proper editing equipment. The tape would have to be physically cut with a pair of scissors and then taped back together. Credits were done on pieces of paper which we would have stacked on top of each other, and one time we even wrote the credits on a toilet roll and rolled it up.
Spank me. Some guys like to sweet talk, and others they
It took us 3 to 4 days to do one episode. Everyone seemed to like it, but it wasn't to everyone's liking, as one time we got pulled off the air for an episode that included prohibited material. In actuality, all I was doing was a segment on safe sex where I demonstrated putting a condom on a dildo. How things have changed.
Miss Cookie is going to get a personal spanking from the Mistress Formica, so do stay tuned for that. Okay. Did you watch the show last week, Mistress? I never watched this damn show. Oh, of course I did. Oh, she is in full character tonight. Okay.
So the Glammy Awards had just started in New York, and they were the brainchild of another drag queen friend of mine, Cherry Jubilee. A bit like the Oscars, but for the New York City nightlife scene, and they're actually still going on to this very day. And one time I found myself nominated for Best Television Performer for CTV, and alongside the nominations was also Head of Letters, Shaquita, and none other than RuPaul. And I remember I was just completely ecstatic. Just the fact that I was nominated, amongst all these amazing people. I never thought I'd win. And it wasn't until I found myself up there accepting my Glammy Award that, I'd moved on. I felt I'd moved on to the next level.
CTV aired for 18 months. We never made any money out of it, and in the end I started to run out of ideas. Corey had been ill for a while, but he became worse and later died. The first person I'd lost due to AIDS. It was a big blow to all of us. Despite this, the work continued to pour in. I got a residency at a new bar called The Cock. They did a night on Saturday called Foxy. The performances were wild and sometimes extreme. A serial enema and a woman tossing a salad in her vagina will be forever etched in my mind. I worked at The Cock and Foxy for what seemed like ages. Irene was on the door and our friend Jay worked the coat check. We all got on so well, we moved in together. I even gave birth at Foxy. One of the performance pieces I did. I walked to work in a maternity dress which was hiding a bin bag full of Cool Whip and Jell-O, with a plastic doll in it being strangled by an umbilical cord. I gave birth to my daughter, Jello MonStar, performing to the track Baby Driver by Kiss. And later on, I got very drunk and left poor Jello in the bar.
So at the time, Mayor Giuliani was in power, and he was determined to rid New York City of its fantastic nightlife scene. And some of the bars and parties had already started to close and with, beginning to lose work. And we needed to find a way of making some extra money. So we thought, why not turn to the oldest profession? I'd heard about a place down on Wall Street called Angels, which was a lap dancing club for ladies like myself. And Corvette had already been going down there, so she suggested that I came along with her. So Luna was the name that I'd given myself. I didn't want to go down there and people know me as Cookie. And the deal was you had to do a 15-minute dance on the stage in the pole, and then you could walk around and offer lap dances to various punters. So along with Angels, there was also Tranny Chaser, which was run by the fabulous Gloria Hole. And at that place, we had regular clients, and we basically just took full advantage of all that. Whenever we could use our sexuality to get anything, we just would. I mean, no one was exempt from that, like cab drivers, delivery boys, anything we could do to make some money, we would do it. We were naughty girls, aren't we?
We were very naughty.
I remember getting into, do you remember like getting cabs, especially from like the old Lips in East Village, and we'd take it in turns to hop up in front. Mm-hmm. And be like, okay girl, it's your turn. You'd go up in front, you'd pull the partition thing. And I realised the other day, all right, the cab fare was only like $5. So while all this was going on as girls, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if I could make any money like this as myself, as a boy. And at the time, I was young, I was blonde and European, which was a big selling point. So I equipped myself with a pager, and back then there were no mobile phones, and I'd put an advert in the appropriate magazine, and I'd advertise myself as an erotic masseur, because I was actually a massage therapist, and I thought that way, if people did hire me and I didn't want to do anything extra, then I could just say that you'd hired me as a massage therapist. I thought it was good to have choices. So I decided I should be a little bit more secretive about Jason's adventures, so I didn't tell anyone. And it wasn't until over lunch one afternoon with Gemini Corvette that Corvette's pager went off, followed by Gemini's pager, followed by my pager. And when we all looked at it, it was the same guy that had been paging us. And so over lunch, our cover about what we were doing as boys had been blown, literally.
And that was when we all realized, we're like, oh my god, girls, we're all doing the same fucking thing. First of all, we're all doing the same fucking grift. Also, the same trade is calling us, and also we've all had a history that he would come down in his nightcap and his little kerchief with the tassel and his candle, and then walk you up the stairs to this rickety old little apartment.
And do you remember the bathroom? The bathroom had a homemade enema in it. Do you remember?
No! Oh my god, I don't remember that.
So Jason was doing really well, and between him and Cookie, I was making some good money. But it was at that time I just felt I was starting to lose my identity because of these two characters. It was like I was no longer Richard anymore. It was almost like he didn't exist. And I'd also moved from Lucky Cheng's across town to another drag restaurant called Lips, where Cherry Jubilee was on reception. And she had a show on cable TV called Go There. So she suggested, because CTV was no longer on air, that I join her as a co-hostess. And so I said, yeah. And Go There was a bit like The Big Breakfast on Channel 4. It was just crazy. It was basically me and Cherry in bed interviewing porn stars and go-go boys. Fabulous.
Hey viewers, it's Cookie and Cherry here. We're just down under doing a little investigating. But you know what? If you've got extra time on your hands, then why not log on to our fabulous website? Cherry, what's the address? www.GoThereTV.org, which is short for orgasm. Talking of which, let's get ready to milk our Victor. See you next time.
I threw myself into my new role at the restaurant and became a fully fledged Lips girl and had a brand new family of sisters. Gusty Wins, Paulina, Cherry, Gigi, Evangeline, Jennifer Michaels, Yvonne, Ginger, Madeline, to name but a few. And we had an amazing time running riot around town as only we knew how to. We even got to perform at the legendary Wigstock, where we played homage to the Spice Girls. But it was another drag queen, Cochetta, who I met there that was to become my partner in crime, as well as a dear friend and sister.
Oh, my sister Cochetta. We hit it off immediately. We became friends like that. I remember we watched each other perform. We had a similar sense of humour. And we came home from work one night and we'd been drinking, had a few drinks, and we decided to write a song together, a comedy parody. So our first song that we ever wrote was a parody of Madonna's Material Girl called Cereal Girls, which was all about different cereals. The first option had been about venereal diseases, and we thought we shouldn't do that one.
My mom feeds me eggs and bacon. I get Ovaltine. But we'd rather munch on something crunchy, sweet and green.
And we just started performing together, and from then on our popularity soared. We were all over the city. We even got flown down to Florida, down to Fort Lauderdale to perform all over there. And eventually we moved in together. And as with all my sisters, we worked hard and we played hard as well. And we had some amazing performances together. One of the ones I remember was at Squeeze Box, another legendary place, and you got to perform with a live band, and this was the first time we'd ever performed with a live band. And I think we both had a throat infection at the same time, so we thought to combat that we'd have a little marijuana cigarette and a shot of Jack Daniels to make ourselves sound more feminine, which of course had the total opposite effect on us.
This indecision's bugging me. You don't want me, set me free. Exactly whom I'm supposed to be. Don't you know which clothes even fit me? Come on and let me know. Should I call it or should I blow?
And we also got to do our very first Pride together. And at the time we were working at the famous Stonewall Bar. We had a night there called the Love Connection, and they'd asked us to go on the float, which was to go down Fifth Avenue. And wow, I'll just never forget that. That was just one of the most amazing days. So we decided to record an album of our parodies. And the album was called All Washed Up, which was a collection of filthy little ditties.
Just a quick snip of puppets, have the penis slide right in. The penis slide right in, you can take it with a grin. Just a quick snip of puppets, have the penis slide right in the most delightful, making it not frightful, in the most delightful way. Yeah.
And it just took me back to the days of when I'd done Ricky's albums, because everything was done by hand. You know, we'd actually recorded the songs in a proper studio, but everything was assembled in Cascetta's bedroom.
Okay, this is a song which was requested by Sherry Vine.
In her
absence.
For you know what, Cookie?
What?
I find it such a waste of time to reapply my lipstick.
Well, the reason why you reapply is because you suck too much dick.
It's your example that I've learned and I just try to follow.
Oh, girl, I told you once before, you've got to learn to swallow.
Ah!
Super trashy, cheap and nasty, cunty, bitchy drag queen. Even though she thinks she's fish, she's really just a has-been.
And all this tired stuff she does is shit that we have all seen.
Super trashy, cheap and nasty, cunty, bitchy drag queen.
And we were riding the wave, and at the next Glammys, we were both awarded an award for Best Duo, and we got to perform our song Serial Girls. Yes! So after the Glammys, I decided to take some singing lessons, which is where I met Natasha, who became a dear friend of mine and who also helped me reawaken my spirituality. And one day during a session, I channeled a song called Soul Song, which was later to become Rain. And at the time, I had no idea where that piece was going to take me.
I was still partying hard, and I don't know if it was the come-downs from that, but I started to feel disconnected and despondent by everything. Despite everything I had going for me, I'd started to become depressed again, and I couldn't really see a future. I loved it here in New York. It felt like home, but once again, something was missing.
I mean, if I think back on it now, there were signs all around telling me what I should do, but at the time I was so blind I couldn't even see them. And, you know, and I didn't even want to see them. And when a situation happens like that, you're forced into that situation. And I was forced into it. My passport was expiring, so I literally had no choice. I had to leave.
Be there with us and we'll go there with you. We'll see you next week, viewers.
We weren't very understanding when you got back from travel, were we? Particularly New York.
No, from New York we weren't. Because we were so happy, weren't we?
We were so pleased to see you, but it never occurred to us that you might not want to be here.
No, I think the first thing I said when I landed was, I'm not here for long.
6 years is a long time to be away from your family. I'd been living a totally different life, and even though we had all been in touch, things felt different. I just felt alien, like I didn't belong anywhere. It was good to see some familiar faces. Claire was also back, of course, and I saw Titch too, which was great. She had been busy writing and performing her own songs, but had also suffered another breakdown. I didn't feel like doing drag. I didn't know how it worked here, and no one knew who Cookie was. I got a part in a small play called It's Christmas Carol and was sure that this would be the role that got me noticed. It didn't. And at a party one night, I was introduced to someone who hooked me up with the drag scene. I quickly made a name for myself, working all over the country and even did some TV, but it still seemed like something was missing. I was working hard and partying even harder. Eventually, everything took its toll and I had a complete breakdown. I moved to Brighton with my then boyfriend, and it was there that I met another dear friend in my life, Dieter. He suggested I go to therapy. I spent the next 4 years sorting out my life. I still performed during that time, and through my therapy, I started to write poems. Titch's condition had become worse. I'd visited her a few times in hospital, and I'd had an idea about a book of my poetry I'd written being interpreted into art. One of those artists would be Titch, the other one, Tracy Adkins, an artist I'd met through work. I felt if I could reignite Titch's creativity, it could help her become better. One time she was able to visit me in Brighton, but I could see that it was going to take more than a painting to help her.
It was like it wasn't even her. And I remember she turned around to me and she said, I don't think I'm ever going to get better. And that was the last time I saw her, really. Yeah. And I remember the phone call. I was at Mum and Dad's and the phone rang and it was her parents' number. And I picked up the phone and I saw it and I thought, I can't answer it right now. I didn't answer it. And then I went and called back and I knew exactly what they were going to say. And she had died, she'd killed herself.
After Titch's death, Tracy and myself formed a creative partnership and started up Titch Productions. Our aim was to help people heal through creativity. I felt I couldn't have Titch's life to have been in vain, and knowing how easily that could have been me made me more determined to succeed. We released our book, recorded Soul Song, the poem from New York, which later became the song Rain, and I also joined a band called Electrosonic. I felt I just had to keep creating in whatever form that took. I also felt I needed a bigger platform and a new audience. It was time to take the bull by the horns and to go where it was happening.
Now in the past, the accolade of Force's Sweetheart has been held by the likes of Dame Vera Lynn and Catherine Jenkins.
But drag act Cookie MonStar is making history by being the first man to be given that title, apparently.
Well, I first started doing the troops, oh God, I can't remember, years ago. I was living in Brighton and I got a phone call from an agent asking me would I like to go over to Germany and entertain the troops. And I was a little bit kind of, oh, I don't know, do I really want to do that? Because, you know, I thought it was a very homophobic environment that I was going into. So I was a little bit wary, but the money was good. And so I went for it and I did 2 shows. And it was a Christmas party, so officers and their wives and stuff, so pretty mixed. And I met this guy, Ashley, who had an agency over there, really liked my show and said, you know, you could come over and make a lot of money. So that was that, and I just kept going and going and going.
Oh, good evening, Bielefeld. How are we doing tonight? Come on, everybody, let me see your hands in the air. You just wanna get a head down, yeah.
And probably a couple of years into it, I had an idea that I'd like to do a documentary about it. And to cut a long story short, met a guy from the BBC at a party, got chatting to him, and the next thing you know, there we were filming Inside Out.
Drag act Cookie MonStar tells his unique story.
and from that I got named the Force's Sweetheart by Vera Lynn, ended up on This Morning with Phil and Holly, blah 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 blah, and the rest is history.
A personal message from Dame Vera Lynn before you're just about to do what you're about to do. Dear Miss Cookie, wishing you all the best on your tour to Germany. Best wishes, Dame Vera Lynn.
Here's the first man to be named Force's Sweetheart. He's Cookie MonStar with All That Jazz.
Come on, babe, why don't we paint the town? And all that jazz, I'm gonna rouge my knees and roll my stockings down. And all that jazz, start the...
Doing drag, I often get asked if I want to become a woman. Even my parents thought that at the beginning. The answer is no. Luckily, I'm happy with the gender I was born with. Drag is an art form for me, a platform for my performance. I've still had people reject me for what I do though, especially on the dating scene. They think I don't look or act masculine enough, whatever that is. Having facial and body hair doesn't change the person I am or make me more manly. It may give off that image, but underneath I'm still the same. To me, masculinity is how I feel as a man, how I connect with that in my heart. It's personal, it's a knowing, and it's about being comfortable with all aspects of myself. But back to drag. It takes balls to do what we all do, big ones. And it's a shame that people still judge each other on their outer appearances and not take a look at what's inside. In my opinion, big balls are a great quality to have.
I honestly didn't know what it was. But I used to like watching Danny LaRue. I thought he was extremely funny. And then since then, I mean, there's only been one person since then who's been on the television, and that's Lily Savage, who I thought was hilarious. Such a shame he's gone into dogs now, isn't it?
Just because I dress as a woman to do my job, yes, a job is what it is, doesn't mean I dress up when I'm at home, and no, I do not want a sex change. I'm very happy as a man.
Well, good evening and welcome to my first my first one-woman show. We're starting with me to go on, weren't we? Hello, darling. My first one-woman show, Pieces of Me, which basically is about me.
Richard did this Pieces of Me, and we were so excited. It was the first time were ever going to see him on stage doing things. I had no idea. And he was sharing a flat with Dieter at the time. And Dieter took us to the Jewellery Theatre. And he said, "Oh, come on downstairs to the dressing room." I think we'd got some flowers for Rich or something like that. So, and I said, "Well, who's that singer? I can hear somebody singing." And he said, "Oh, wait and see." I said, "Oh, they've got a fantastic voice. Oh, you wait and see." And then, of course, we saw him and heard. I had no idea he could sing. No idea. And it was just, wow. This is our son, doing this. He was fantastic. He looked fantastic.
I've seen all the movie stars in their fancy cars and their limousines. Been high on the Rockies under the evergreens. But I know what I'm needing, and I don't want to waste my time. I'm in a New York state of mind. It was so easy, living day by day, out of touch with the rhythm and the blues. But now I need a little give and take. The New York Times, the Daily News. It comes down to reality, and that's fine with me, 'cause I let it slide. Don't care if it's Chinatown or if it's Riverside. I don't have any reasons, I've left them all
never forget that. But that was the first time we saw him. We've never seen him other than being Sheila Simmonds. I think we've seen all his Sheila Simmonds shows. I love Sheila Simmonds. Absolutely adore her. The first one we went to was at the Leicester Square Theatre. Oh, it's fantastic.
Now, of course, you know that I have my own range of products. Yes. And I also have my own vineyards down in Robinvale in Mildura in the state of Victoria. And we grow our own grapes and then we ferment them for 27 months into my own home brew, which I just happen to have a bottle of right here. It is the Sheila Simmonds Chateau de Chité.
I wanted to do something that was more theatrical. Stuff that I could do in theatres, etc, etc. So a friend of mine who was a writer saw me in Molly's and William, and he said, you know, I'd really like to write a musical for Cookie. And William is from Liverpool and I love the Liverpool accent, I love northern accents, I just think it's really great for comedy. And he'd written this piece and I read it and it was really funny, but it wasn't that funny in my accent. So we put a Liverpool accent on it, we put a northern accent on it, and then I said, oh, let me try an Australian one because I've been playing around with accents. So we did it in an Australian accent and I was like, oh my God, this is the one, this is the one.
Now, nothing says Christmas like a well-iced cake. And it's very simple. What we're going to do, you know what, I might take the wrapper off this because it's the last show. Have you seen this, Jude? It started to get cold here. It started on December the 3rd. Look at that. I don't think I will. I can't remember where I got it from, darling. There we go. Now, what we're going to do... No, I got this from Sainsbury's. We've actually gone through 2 cakes, both of them ruined by lesbians.
And I was on holiday. I'd kind of worked through little bits and pieces of what I wanted Sheila to look like. She went through many incarnations before the famous pink polyester trouser suit, the Diamante flats, the handbag and the wig. And I was on holiday in Goa with my good friend Dita. And for some reason, I just turned around and something told me to check my Twitter. So I checked my Twitter and there was an advert on there from Walt, who was the then producer of the Supreme Fabulettes. And they just started working with William Baker, Steve Anderson, Terry Ronald, John Themis. And they were looking for something new for this show at Leicester Square Theatre and a possible tour. And I said, well, if I go as Sheila, I've got to write something. And he just turned around in his usual dry humour and said, well, write it then.
It's me, Sheila.
And I went along to Madame Jojo's to the audition. And I remember I arrived there and there was loads of burlesque people and fire breathers and contortionists, and then there was me in this pink polyester trouser suit. Then I went on and I did everything you should never do in an audition. I just assumed the character of Sheila. I walked out there and I said, right, now listen everybody, I know we're at an audition, but we're going to pretend that we're at a show, we're in a big stadium. I'm Sheila Simmonds, the fabulous menageress. I'm going to come out, you're all going to applaud for me, and I'm going to start. You got that? And they all just looked at me and were like, okay. So I walked off and came out, started doing the monologue, and I think within like 10-15 seconds John was standing up filming it on his iPhone, and I could hear the sound guy laughing, and I thought, I've got this.
Oh, so excited. Oh, it's so wonderful to be here with you all tonight at the Leicester Square Theatre. How the wonderful are you? Oh, fantastic.
We did the shows at Leicester Square, then we did a couple of UK tours, which was amazing. But out of that, I decided I wanted to do some solo shows. I'd had my eye on this director for a long time, Stuart Saint, and I went along to see one of his adult pantos, and as soon as I saw it and as soon as I saw him, I knew I wanted him to direct Sheila. And he says that I badgered him, and I didn't. I think I sent him one email. And he said to me, he went away and read everything. He said, I really like the character, but I want you to go away for about a year and, you know, get busy on the social media side of it, you know, tour with the girls, get to know the character a bit more. And I was like, a year? You want me to wait a year? I want to do this now. I want to get on and do it now. And he was like, no, trust me on this one. Wait, just wait. It'll all be worth it. I was like, I don't want to wait. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I did wait a year and did exactly what he told me. And it was worth the wait. So thank you very much for that, Stuart.
Christmas is also very special because it's about Jesus. And I was talking to Jean the other day and I said, I wonder what Jesus would make of all this malarkey and carry on for his birthday if he were alive today. I mean, if you ask me, it all went downhill when Mary decided to go bareback on that donkey.
We knew he was funny because he's, you know, as a kid he was always funny. He was always mimicking people and making us laugh. Because Tim used to say, why do you laugh at Richard, not me? You think, oh God, how do you say, Tim, you're not funny? But yeah, he was, seeing him actually perform, that's when you realise that's what he wants to do. Not the 9-to-5 job, that kills him. That just knocks all the stuffing out of him.
You asked whether we were proud of him or not, and we will say yes, we're immensely proud of him, because he's always wanted to do acting of some sort and singing, and he's never let anything get in the way of that. And he's had some really very bad experiences. People have let him down, he's been disappointed, things haven't turned out like he wanted it to turn out, but he's kept going and going and going, and I think he's achieved an awful amount. That's something to be very, very proud of.
Bad things happen, good things happen. Make the most of the good. Try and work out what the bad things are and get on with your life. You can't go through life without bad things happening as well as good.
So one of my favourite kind of performances is when I get together with my pianist Sarah and we just improvise a song, just make it up on the spot. It's just exciting because you never know what's going to happen. In fact, we should have really done one for this film.
Having a camera in your face, but it's not. Oh, I've laid my soul bare, like a piece of dirty underwear. Oh, put it all over to you, and now I don't know what to do. So I thought I'd get on the piano and sing a little song, 'cause when I'm singing, well, nothing ever goes wrong. You know what? I've got Sarah on the keys, and this documentary is all about me. Sorry, Sarah. Well, you know, I've told you a lot about my life, all of the ups and downs, the struggles and the strifes. But now I think it's time to have some fun. We need to go somewhere where I'm number one, so we gotta get up on an aeroplane nice and early. We gotta get there with my friend Jay, and when we arrive
funny looking back on things. This year I'm celebrating 21 years in drag. That's 21 years of shaving my body, plastering my face with makeup, gluing on nails, lashes and brows, all while tottering around in 6-inch heels with my dick tucked up my arse. My feet are knackered, I've got 2 slip discs, and I've probably sung Proud Mary more times than Tina Turner herself. But would I change anything? Absolutely not.
Do you miss those days?
Yeah, you know, I was young. I was having fun. Do I miss them? I miss them. I do. I miss them a lot. But life is different. Life changed.
Are you glad we had all those experiences?
I'm glad.
I couldn't do it again.
No.
No way.
No, it's great. It's great.
I'm glad that we have all these like stories to tell. Because I look at like the scene now, and I think, God, are they having the wildest time as we do?
No.
I don't think they are.
They aren't, because there's too many rules now.
But we have fun.
We had an amazing time.
We can go to our grave saying we lived.
But that sisterhood, love you, girl. I love you.
I can't be anything other than the person I am. There's no point in trying to be something that I'm not, and it's taken me a lifetime to get to this place of acceptance, and even now I have up and down days. I'll never please everybody, and I'll never fit in to what is considered to be the norm, whatever that is. And why would I? I'm quirky, I'm different, I have a funny voice, I'm a bit odd, I'm camp. Sometimes I feel masculine, sometimes feminine. But I've learned to accept all these things and make them work for me, because they're what makes me myself. They're unique and I'm unique. The things you perceive as imperfect are actually the things that make you perfect. I have no regrets. Every experience I've had, good or bad, has made me stronger, made me into the person that I am today. We are all here to be our unique selves, to respect each other for those differences, embrace them, and learn from each other without judgment, hate, or fear. Individually, we are all strong, but together we have the opportunity to be truly magnificent. When I started this documentary, not only did I want to tell my story, but I wanted to inspire people to tell everyone that's watching, yes, you, to not give up on your dreams, not to lose sight of who you truly are. The film was inspired by a song I'd written about a show I went to see with my parents when I was a little boy. The feather symbolises hopes and dreams, spirituality and connectedness. So find your feather, believe, trust, and allow it to take you on your journey. Face your fears and challenges head on, and you open yourself up to a whole new world. Find your inner strength, and you become unstoppable. If you can imagine it, you can create it. If you can dream it, you can become it. So, are you ready?
This is a really difficult question. Career highlights and a low light. Probably the highlight has to be that I'm still here 21 years later.
Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from London, give it up for Cookie! When I was a little boy, you took me to a show. A woman appeared to sing a song as we sat in the front row. I could smell her perfume, her hair was blonde, pink feathers were her gown. And as she sang, she turned around and one of them fell down on me. Fell down on me. Growing up, I'd sit and listen to my radio. My dreams, desires, all written down, but they had nowhere to go. The audience, that was my mirror staring back at me. Too afraid to step inside, too afraid to see the pink feathers
understand. From black and white to color, I was in another land. A pink feathers, pink feathers. I took the knocks, I took the heartbreak, but found the strength to fight. 'Cause deep inside, a voice was telling me that I was right. To live your life the way you want, to realize your dreams. That anything is possible, now everyone can see the pink feathers, the pink feathers. Your eyes, your soul, your heart, they see. 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 Pink feathers.